playoff edition of Daily Faceoff Live. Welcome into the show. We are live on the DFO YouTube looking for your inbox questions. And as always, the show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app, use the code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. I'm here every day. He's Colby Cohen. He's not here every day. Pinch hitting for our guy, Frank Saravalli. Colby, it's been a minute. How you doing?
You know, Tyler, anytime I come on this show, it just reminds me what a good host should be like. The way you read us into this show, like, it just makes me realize how amateur the guy is who reads us into our show every morning. Like, it's just so nice to work with such a good pro like you.
Usually I would stand up for my boy Johnny Lazarus, but after he sewered me to Josh Bogorard, I'm just gonna let that one. I'm gonna let that stray hit its target. I'll accept the shot.
I figured today you would.
Yeah. Again, live on the YouTube, Stephen Ellis is our big guest today. We're going to talk a little Memorial Cup World Hockey Championships in a little bit. But first, the conference finals kicked off last night out east. It was the Panthers getting the first scratch on the Carolina Hurricanes. And for the Hurricanes, they see their organization's losing streak in the conference finals reach 13 games, and with that they also lose home ice advantage in this series. It was a disappointing night for the Canes, but plenty of sort of areas to dig into here, Colby. First off, I think a lot of people might look at the shots in this hockey game, or they might go to whatever stats website, Natural Stat Trick, and look at the shot attempts and all of that stuff and be like, whoa, the Canes played good, they deserve to win. They did not. That was all Florida last night.
They had too many mistakes, the bad change on the Greer goal. Some of the, I would say, the decision making with the puck. Look, they tried to play Florida's game, and that never works. And we talked about this on Morning Cup of Hockey, and I gave a lot of credit to our friend at the National Hockey League, Brant Berglund, for this. But you look at the way that these two teams achieve puck possession in the offensive zone, right? One team is as good at soft chipping and placing as anybody in the NHL, and that's the Carolina Hurricanes. The other team, they forecheck, like a bunch of rabid animals. The way they come, their defense come down the wall, they're physical, they make you feel it every time. And the Florida Panthers they imposed their will, and they were opportunistic, and Carolina had a couple of opportunities to score early in that game, which they didn't. Bob makes a couple of saves and erases plays that you forget even happen. And ultimately, right now, who's stopping the Florida Panthers? Like, I know it's one game, but it's on home ice. We know what Carolina's home ice advantage normally looks like, Tyler. If I'm a Carolina Hurricanes, I feel I'm not full panic mode yet, but I certainly am uncomfortable after watching that happen on home ice last night.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think some of the worrying about Freddie Anderson, I'm not going there yet. It's been one game for a guy who's been just so damn good in these playoffs. But speaking of the goaltending side, actually, let's save the goaltending for a second here. I want to talk about the opportunistic power plays for the Florida Panthers, because I was, again, watching that game live. Carolina misses on an early power play, but also on that power play, Florida gets away with a couple of cross checks. Then Aho gets called for a ticky-tack roughing penalty.
Yeah, I didn't like that call at all.
It was awful considering what they didn't call Florida on. I thought it was, again, the irritating side of game management, where it's like, wow, we can't put the Panthers down 5-on-3 this early in a game, this early in a series. But the second there's a slight infraction on Carolina, it's like, boom, they're quick to even it up because, yeah, they deserve a power play now. And listen, as much as I think if you're a Canes fan, you can be very frustrated by the officiating there, you also have to look at the Panthers and, comparing it to, I compared it before the show to the Kansas City Chiefs, where, like, yes, they get some breaks with the officiating and all that, but at every turn, they take advantage of those opportunities. Florida's 2 power play goals both came at massive points, and they deserve credit for taking advantage of those, call them breaks.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even love the goal, the Verhaeghe goal. Like, it's a great shot, but when you got a guy on his backhand on that angle, like, I want to see your goaltender be big there, right? And you saw Anderson kind of get in a little bit tight. He's not able to make the save. Again, it's a great shot. I'm not saying it's a bad goal, but it's a goal I would like to see him save in an Eastern Conference final game. But look at the Toronto game, right? Like, look at those 2 massive blowouts against Toronto. They take advantage of every mistake. Carolina might only make 4 or 5 of them a game. Well, they're all in the back of the net. Washington had chances. They didn't have sustained chances, but they had chances. They didn't take advantage. Last night, the Florida Panthers did. And look, if it continues to be like that, I said Panthers in 7. Maybe it's Panthers in 5 or 6. I don't know.
Yeah, this play by Svechnikov bumping into in the old accidentally on purpose on Sergei Bobrovsky. Is that just playoff gamesmanship a la Sam Bennett on Anthony Stolarz, or is this a little too greasy for your liking?
I mean, it's greasy, but again, my thought process is if nobody gets hurt, I got no problems with it. I thought the play Shane Gostisbehere made was greasy, shooting the puck at Brad Marchand, but nobody gets hurt, right? And all it does is turn the temperature up in a series. All it does is make more entertainment for us. And look, it's not like we've never seen a player on the Florida Panthers do something similar, right? So, why not do it before they do it to you?
Yeah, strike first, I suppose. I get it. And yeah, if you're a Panthers fan complaining about that, you have no legs to stand on in that regard at all. And also, I don't think Panthers fans are complaining. They're up 1-0 in the Eastern Conference Final. But Colby, let's go out west now. The rematch between the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers gets going tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern puck drop. And let's begin this thing by looking at the Dallas Stars perspective. They're looking for a little Texas-sized revenge on the Edmonton Oilers after losing last year in 6 games. And Pete DeBoer today talking a little bit about, the different look that his team has this year. And he talked specifically about having the difference maker in Mikko Rantanen. And he said, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he was like, hey, Connor and Leon, the Oilers have 2 guys who can create something out of nothing. And DeBoer says it's nice to have a guy like that now in Mikko Rantanen. Mikko should be a big difference, or will need to be a big difference maker in this series if Dallas is going to win.
And we also saw what happens when you look too much at Mikko Rantanen. This guy named Mikael Granlund can go down and hurt you in a lot of different ways. And I think it's an opportunity for Roope Hintz to have a little coming out party here in the Western Conference Finals. But sure, you could look at the way Rantanen's played in the playoffs. It's the obvious difference maker. How about how Harley has really gone to another level since 4 Nations? I don't think the Edmonton Oilers saw a guy in Harley that was quite this good last year, this time around. I think Jake Ottinger has been better in the playoffs this year as well. I don't think he's had those leaky off-night moments like we've seen some in the previous years. And so, look, I think if there's any team good enough to knock off Edmonton, because Edmonton has just played the best hockey now for a number of games in a row, it would be Dallas. And I think this series, Tyler, is going to be unbelievably entertaining. I think it's going to be way more entertaining than the series in the East. I think it's going to be tighter as far as the amount of games it goes than the series in the East. And this should be must-see TV.
You are right, I think, on Ottinger, maybe just a little bit more steady this year versus last year. I'm looking, there was a couple more ugly save percentages on his game logs. And listen, Dallas is going to need a bunch of guys to be at their best. Rantanen one, Ottinger is obviously the other one. And I look back to last year where, again, it's not like Mikko Rantanen came into a forward group that was barren of talent and couldn't get anything going. Like, there's a lot of really, really good players there, but this is what they did last year. Like, Jason Robertson scored 3 goals in 1 game in the series against the Edmonton Oilers and then was a ghost for the rest of that series. Wyatt Johnson showed up, but that was really it. Like, these are their top 5 scorers, and you're going, where's Roope Hintz? Where was Joe Pavelski? Where were all these other guys? So, again, Dallas, their top line needs to keep humming the way it was humming at points against Colorado and definitely humming at points against Winnipeg. But I look in that bottom 9, too, and I'm like, okay, Mason Marchment, Jamie Benn, like, those guys do find a way to make an impact outside of the score sheet. But when you go up against an Oilers offense that is this good, needs to be more than just the physicality, the grit. Like, they need guys to start scoring away from that top line.
Yeah, Matt Duchene, he's got to score. Yeah. I mean, like, he's in a contract year. He had a great regular season. He's kind of grown into a little bit of a leader, and I think in his early days that was not the case. We played together in his earliest days. Now, granted, he's a teenager at the time, so I was with Tyler Seguin at the same part of his career, like. Teenage Colby, 36-year-old Colby, very different human being. So I do understand that a little bit, Tyler. But you're right. You need contributions. Wyatt Johnston, they haven't really found a home completely for him, right? Like, is he center? Is he going to play wing? Like, where's he going to move around? And so we'll see what happens. But you're right. I think the depth has been more proven in scoring on the other team, the Edmonton team. And we'll see if Dallas's depth scoring wakes up. Like you said, they contribute, but not on the score sheet yet.
Yeah, two big things as well for Dallas that I think, give them a bit of an edge. Miro Heiskanen, we saw his minutes really increase in that last game against the Winnipeg Jets. That's a sign he's back to 100% health. And if he's back to 100% health, that means they should be able to go 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. So the ripple effect of Miro being back to 100% is not just that you have your best blue line or potentially best player back in the lineup, but maybe these forward lines can find a little chemistry here for Dallas. And again, I think they're really going to need it in these playoffs. I see a comment from Johnny who's like, man, Wyatt Johnson minus 13, yikes. And yeah, listen, there have been some not good performances from some of those Dallas forwards. I'm also not so stupid as to believe that they're just going to continue playing bad. I think at some point these guys will find their game. Let's talk about some keys from the Edmonton side. Colby, Stuart Skinner is playing good hockey right now. And listen, if I were to compare this Oilers team at this point in 2025 compared to this point last year as they were starting the series against Dallas, my mindset going into that last series was, okay, can Connor and Leon overcome all the deficiencies in their roster and in their play? Because it really was the Oilers' big guns and basically nothing else. This year, it's different. And if I was a Stars fan, that would concern me a little bit that, hey, the Oilers have been winning rounds with 97 and 29 being relatively quiet compared to their standard.
And I think the other thing is that, Stuart's, like, you started this conversation with Stuart Skinner. You're not asking Stuart Skinner to go out there and be a Vezina level goaltender. You're asking Stuart Skinner to go out there and have a 905 save percentage, because if you get that from him, you're going to win, and you're going to win this series, and you're going to have an opportunity to play for a Stanley Cup again. I think the other thing, Tyler, that's got to get going is the power play. You're going to play against Dallas, who's 30% on the power play. Edmonton's been a little bit hot and cold at times in the playoffs. Last year, they were 40%, and it actually won them different series. I mean, we talked about keys to the series, and these are things you and I have already really spoken about today, actually, on Morning Cup of Hockey. But I think those are two massive keys for this team. I also think the depth's got to keep scoring, because you're going to eventually have breakout games. Connor McDavid usually has 15 points in a playoff series, right? So let's say you get 15 points from Connor McDavid this round. Well, what happens when Evander Kane scores a couple of goals and Corey Perry does, and you get one from Podkolzin and Arvidsson? Now you're looking at a team that is nearly impossible to stop offensively. We know they're not going to be perfect defensively, right? They were really good defensively in those last couple of games against Vegas, so let's give them credit where credit is due. But if you want to look at that team, you could say, okay, at times you might have to worry a little bit about the third pair. Maybe you get Ekholm back. Maybe that pushes things down a little bit better. Stetcher's given you some good minutes since he started playing again for this Edmonton Oiler team. And I know he was out, he was in. Like, there's been a little bit of that going on. But I think those are real important keys for the Edmonton Oilers to win this series.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's move along, step aside from the playoffs here for a moment, get to our offseason preview for the day, and it's all about the Seattle Kraken. And Colby, to tell a little story, I was in Seattle back in November, and I just went to a Kraken game, sat in the stands. Me and the guy next to me are chatting, and he's like, oh, you're from Canada. He goes, so you got to know hockey. He goes, tell me, what do we got to do to get some of the players like who Edmonton has? And I told him, I was like, man, it ain't fun, but you have to suck for a while. And that's the biggest problem here with the Seattle Kraken, is that they made the playoffs early. They had this high sense of belief, and they put themselves in a spot where their roster was too bad to compete for a cup, but too good to suck hard enough that you get some talent. And this offseason, when I look at what the Kraken have to do, I think they have to make some tough decisions, sell off from some quality players, and suck.
Yeah, they're just in no man's land. And, they had a lot of sort of head-scratching decisions. I haven't necessarily agreed with some of the coaching decisions that they've made the last couple of years. I didn't think walking away from Dave Haxtell when they did was the right decision. They had a good staff with him and Jay Leach kind of steering the ship a little bit. But they're just a team that has been stuck in no man's land. And look, the Vegas Golden Knights kind of changed our recency bias on expansion teams, but let's go back, right? Remember Columbus, when they were the expansion team? They weren't very good for a while, right? Forever even. I mean, and not to take shots at Columbus here, because it is an unbelievable fan base, and I do think that they are finally, to me, on a really good path to sustaining success. They've had a year or two at Torts where things went well, but I think this is kind of normal for expansion teams. Vegas is the exception to the rule, right? They're not the rule when it comes to expansion.
Yeah, I like, again, even going back to last summer, I like Brandon Montour. I like Chandler Stevenson. But again, you sign those guys and it's like, okay, are you just trying to stay mediocre here? So there's a couple of guys heading into their final seasons: Schwartz, Eberle, Tolvanen, Alexiak. You could probably get a lot for these guys at the deadline if you want to hold them. So it's not like you need to make the move right now. But again, never fun trading your captain. I would even look at a Jared McCann. I'd look at a Vince Dunn, guys with 2 years left, and be like, you're going to get a first round pick plus, probably plus for those two guys. Like, that's something you need to consider doing. And again, it doesn't need to be a long 6-year rebuild. You can do it quick if you do it right, would be my message to the Seattle Kraken. This should be a summer where they sell off. On that note, let's get to our big segment for the day. It's the Next Wave, and it's brought to you by Budweiser. Budweiser is encouraging buds to make time for the playoffs, not excuses. Every goal, every win is better enjoyed with your buds. So phone a bud, text a bud, and call out their excuses for bailing on the playoffs. It's the most wonderful time of the year, so make it count with Budweiser. Steven Ellis, our daily Faceoff prospect analyst. Steven, just on the Seattle thing, next year, would that not be a good year to just be like, we're going to bottom out, and as long as we're picking in the bottom 5, we're going to get a good player?
Absolutely. You look at, Gavin McKenna is the huge piece there. There's Keaton Verhoff, the big defenseman. There's Ivor Stenberg. There's so many key pieces to next year's draft. So, we talk about it kind of every year. Oh, is the next draft worth watching? When it comes to 2026, not only is it going to be strong at the top end, but it should be deep in the first round. So I do really like that group. And if you're compared to this year, you definitely want to be at the bottom of the standings next season.
Let's talk a little bit about the Memorial Cup. It gets going in Rimouski in a little bit. And listen, me being a Western Canadian guy, I've been hearing about the Medicine Hat Tigers all year, but I look at a roster that's got Lindstrom and McKenna, and you see some of the highlights that they produce, and it's like, man, is Medicine Hat the favorite, or am I just reading too much into that roster on paper?
You can look at the fact that the London Knights basically had the easiest run to the final and say, okay, that team's pretty healthy. They're looking pretty good. They've got a great goalie. But in terms of pure skill, I'm looking at Medicine Hat being the team to watch here. And Gavin McKenna, you just those numbers are incredible. Oasis Wiesblatt had over 100 points himself. Ryder Ritchie's great. Hunter St. Martin. They got so many good pieces. And then you're looking at the fact they got Andrew Basha and Caden Lidstrom in time for the playoffs. And we didn't see them at 100%, but they played good. And I think what you're looking at here is a team that's got so many scoring weapons. Yeah, you'll look at the stats at the end of the season and look, 129 points for McKenna, 103 points for Wiesblatt. Next highest was 61. But the reality was, once the playoffs came, everyone was performing, and they've got a good goaltender too. And to me, that's the team I'm watching for sure.
I really do like watching Ryder Ritchie play. And I'm just going to quickly ask you, where's Gavin McKenna playing hockey next year, Steven?
Not in the WHL. Well, it's
okay. I figured you might know. Nobody seems to know.
I would be shocked if it's WHL, but of course, Medicine Hats, I believe they're hosting the Memorial Cup next year, so we'll see.
Maybe it's the worst kept secret in all of hockey right now. But let me ask you about Caleb Denoyer, because he's really everywhere right now. He took a huge step in the QMJHL playoffs. It seems like he's moving up everybody's ranking boards. And I'll say this: you were talking about this guy months and months and months ago before anybody else was propping him up the way he has. So what are we thinking about Caleb come draft time?
Yeah, so he was number 5 on my last draft board, and I've got a new draft board coming next week, so we'll see kind of where I put him from there. But this is a guy that is a proven winner. He's won at the U17 World Championship, the U18 World Championship. He won the Lincoln Gretzky Cup. And in a lot of those cases, he was on a team like Team Canada that probably should win. But he was a key part of every single one of those groups. Now you look at what he did with Moncton this year. They win the championship, and he was a key part of that too. And honestly, though, he was a bit quiet at the end of that series against Rimouski. He didn't have any points in the last 3 games, but he was still so good in so many different areas. He's a 6'2" forward. He's not massive. He's not bulky, but he knows how to use his strength. He's very smart. He's a good two-way player, and he is one of the best centermen in this draft. teams, we know they like guys who've been in winning situations and know how to perform in those big moments. And he has proven that time after time. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes even number 3 or number 4.
Yeah, if he drops a little, you might look at him as a good fit in the orange and black and Broad Street here in Philadelphia. They need a centerman to play with Mitchkov for sure. What about any other names that you're really looking out for in Rimouski here over the next week or two here of the Memorial Cup?
Well, Colton Davies has actually got a really good preview coming out here today at 1:30 p.m. But a couple names I'm looking at specifically on London. Sam Dickinson having a fantastic year. A lot of people will write him off after the World Juniors, but this guy is going to be a star in the NHL sooner rather than later. Denver Barkey, Easton Cowan, those two are so good. Kasper Holttunen was probably my favorite player to watch in any of the CHL playoffs. Hat trick after hat trick after hat trick. Austin Elliott bounced around a few teams, goes to London. He's on fire, so I like them for sure. When you look at Moncton, obviously Denoyer is the guy that everyone's looking at there. Marcus Vidicek, another player who's a bit of a good energy guy, not very big, not the strongest player, but he's got some skill there. And I think when you look at Rimouski, not a ton of high-end talent, but I really like Eric Smateko. And you might remember him as that guy that just sunk Canada on Team Latvia at the World Juniors. Just this big-bodied forward, a Washington Capitals prospect that likes to go out there and bully guys, but he's got the skill to burn too. So those are the ones I'm keeping an eye on.
Let's go over to the World Hockey Championship. Steven, you've been giving us some coverage for that over on the site. Any prospects over there making any noise?
You're not a fan there, Colby?
No, I think it's great. Like that's how I know about what's going on at the World Championships is from your social media. Like it's you probably watch more international hockey than any human being on the planet.
Yeah. So the one name I'm really looking at here, Austria is a ton of fun to watch this year. If you had a chance to watch them, they haven't. This is the first time in my lifetime that they've actually qualified for the playoff round. But they look good. They've beat good teams. They lost to I think it was Canada and Sweden, but played well against those teams. When you look at Vincent Rohrer, the Montreal Canadiens prospect, that's the guy I'm looking at here. He had a very good season in the Swiss League. He had 25 points in 52 games. Sorry, it's the National League in Switzerland. Swiss League is the Division 2. Very stupid naming scheme. But then you go and watch him at this tournament. This has been a breakout of tournament for him. He's very fast. He's got 4 goals, 6 points. He's blocking shots. He's playing on the penalty kill. He's doing everything for this Austrian team. And we've seen him play at the men's national team level before. Last year, he was more of a depth guy. Even this year at the Olympic qualifiers, didn't see much out of him. This has been his breakout tournament, and he is showing signs that he could be a very valuable bottom 6 player for the Canadiens, just due to how well he moves, that energy, everything there combined.
And last one, I really liked your story up at dailyfaceoff.com. Macklin Celebrini and Sidney Crosby are quite the duo at the Worlds.
Yeah, so Sidney Crosby's played with a lot of good players in his career, whether it be Malkin, whether it be Patrice Bergeron, whether it be Jake Gensel. But when you're watching these two guys playing together, it's kind of special what they're doing right now at the World Championships. Crosby is one of the best players in this tournament, obviously, but Celebrini might be one of the smartest players he's ever played with. That hockey IQ is off the charts, and going to this tournament and getting to learn from Crosby in particular is so important for a player of Celebrini's age. He's one of the youngest players in this tournament, but he doesn't look like that. He's got that size, he's got that skill, but the plays those two are making together, I don't know if there's another player on this team other than maybe Nate McKinnon that'd be able to pull off the type of skill and smart plays that Celebrini's doing out there. So I wrote about them earlier today. I've watched a lot of international hockey. I've watched a lot of Sidney Crosby hockey in my lifetime, and I don't know if I've seen a player that can match his hockey IQ like Macklin Celebrini is doing right now.
Can read that story up
at
Daily.
Connor Bedard, Tyler. What a miss for Connor Bedard not going over there. Like I'm starting to feel like the world has shifted, and it's now Celebrini Bedard as far as the pecking order goes, and I wonder if we'll see Celebrini playing in the Olympics next year. And will we see Connor Bedard in the Olympics? I'd guess no, but we'll see.
Hockey Canada takes these players going to the World Championship into consideration on big roster decisions. They have, at least in the past. When you're seeing the way Celebrini's playing with Crosby could play with anyone. But again, that chemistry is been so good that I would want to keep those two together. And I don't think Bedard's going to make it anymore.
Steven, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on.
Thanks so much.
All right, Colby, daily Faceoff inbox question. I really like this one that came in the chat. With all the high-end talent of Finnish players left in the playoffs, if you had to pick one of them to start a franchise around, who would you pick? So you have Hintz, you have Rantanen, you have Heiskanen, you have Aho, you have Barkov. The options are endless. Which Finnish player would you start a franchise with?
Heiskanen. Easy for me.
Easy.
I'm always starting with I'm always starting with a defenseman. I think after that, probably Barkov. I think that if I was going to go in order, I'd say Heiskanen, Barkov, Rantanen would be the way I would go down those three.
I think I would flip Barkov and Heiskanen, but I agree with you that they're definitely 1 and 2. Something about a workhorse centerman who does it all for me would be my pick. But it is cool to kind of see the rise of these Finns, and it does raise an interesting question. I know we just had the 4 nations, but when we get to international rules, I know it's not international ice, but when we get to the Olympics, Finland's going to be a really, really tough out.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get to our daily bets for the day, brought to you by Bet365. Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs? They got you from game props, player props, totals, and money line. You can even bet on futures like series winner, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs, must be 19 or older. A couple of plays for me today. Colby, 1, a series bet. You see it on the left-hand side there. Roope Hintz and Zach Hyman each to score 2+ goals in this series. Paired together, it's plus 166. I think that number is low for a couple of guys who both play on not only the top line, but the top power play unit as well. And I think Zach Hyman's due to get going a little bit. He's been a little cold in these playoffs. So I like that parlay for the series. And for tonight, not picking a side, Connor McDavid has crushed his shot prop every game against the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm taking McDavid 3 shots, Rantanen 3 shots. He hit this in most of his games against Winnipeg, and each of the 2 superstars to get a point, and it comes in at plus 260. You lean in either way, Stars or Oil tonight, Cole?
That's a good question. I think I like Edmonton to come out in game 1 and start the series and stay hot. I do expect them to have some adversity in the series, but when a team is hot, you stay with them, right? And who's been hotter than the way that the Edmonton Oilers have played?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Oilers traditionally do struggle in game 1s, but they did take the opener in Vegas last round. That brings us to garbage time for today's show, Colby. And listen, I know a lot of people do kind of roll their eyes, don't pay a ton of attention to the World Hockey Championships, but I wanted to give some love to the guy in the middle there. That's Ryan O'Reilly, and he became Canada's all-time leader at the World Hockey Championships. And listen, this guy has played in thousands of NHL games, 1,152 to be exact. He's won a Stanley Cup now. He's done it all. No one would blame guys like him or Sidney Crosby if they put their hand up and said, I'm not going to play more hockey at the end of the season. But the fact O'Reilly, every single year when he's available, is leaving right when his team gets eliminated to go over the Worlds. I think he deserves so much credit for doing this. And again, like, you look at those young guys on Team Canada, they'll take a lot from Ryan O'Reilly being there.
Yeah. And I'll say this. I played with Ryan O'Reilly. The guy loves hockey. Not every guy in the National Hockey League eats, sleeves, breathes hockey. He was the last guy out on the ice every single day of training camp, every practice during the regular season. He would stand 2 feet or a foot away from the puck bucket. He'd have 100 pucks. He'd flip everyone into the puck bucket. He'd sit on the ice for an hour and just flip it. Like, and then he'd go to the crease and he'd go around the net and he'd be in tight and it'd be under the bar. He'd do hundreds of them a day. The guy's a hockey nerd. He loves the game. I'm not surprised. Good for him. And he has a lot of fun too. Like, he's a very fun guy off the ice. He was the DJ in the locker room. Always a good time out at the bar as well.
I was going to say, as much as those guys are there to win a championship, I think taking the boys over to Stockholm for a couple of weeks in May and June, that sounds like a pretty good time to me. Colby, appreciate you filling in today. Colby Cohen, 1/2 a Morning Cup of Hockey. I mean, if you're watching this show, you're obviously watching Morning Cup of Hockey at 9 a.m. Eastern as well. You guys are back on the air tomorrow morning to recap Game 1 of the Western Conference Final. Then Frank and I will be back up at noon tomorrow. Enjoy the hockey tonight, everyone, and we will see you on Thursday. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content, from daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.